Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is I am the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog here, aka the Blue Blur, aka Blue Justice, and I'm from the likes of the Mexi Toys videos, as you probably expect at this point in time. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more Let's Play of Sonic Frontiers for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, PC Steam, and finally the Nintendo Switch. So, last time, we have essentially manage able to finish the entire main story mode, at least for now anyway, and basically we did somehow beaten the fourth and the final Titan in the game, presumably speaking, which appears to be Supreme, and on top of that, we also come across into, in my opinion, it is one of the most lackluster final bosses ever, or to be more specifically, the worst aspect of the game in my opinion is the end. Just because, why the heck are we playing Ikaruga all of a sudden? But, potentially speaking, it was about the fact I just want to get the actual story mode finished and over and done with, because obviously about the fact that I just want to able to beat the thing on normal mode, not easy mode. So because of that though, yeah, I just found this a bit too much for my liking. So, but even then though, that's the way I'm essentially going to be able to describe about the forms of how much I'm not a big fan of the forms of the end final boss as far as I'm concerned with that stuff. So, anywho though, today for this video is about the fact that we're about to get started with the forms of some extra content, specifically Cyberspace Challenge, as you can see. Now basically it's about the fact that what we're gonna do for this point is that we will try our best if we're able to actually get the best rank in the entire Cyberspace Challenge, and because of that though, once again we need to aim for a glorious S rank. And, except the fact no matter what though, as you can see, we can now utilize the Spin Dash, and my goodness, the Spin Dash is pretty overpowered during the forms of certain cyberspace segments, which is especially noticeable once we get to the 2D sections. Well, you see why as soon as we're able to actually get to the latest cyberspace segments from time to time. Although, relatively speaking, though, this is not the final time we're going to be seeing the cyberspace segments, because that will be until for later. Because obviously about that specific point that, well, I will admit though right away, it's about the fact that during the forms of in the last video sent on Friday, I apologize for that particular technical issue from the likes of the forms of in the last video on Sonic Frontiers. To be more specifically though, is about the fact that not only just because of the forms of some awkward commentary at some form or another, but also we've stumbled across into a massive issue that we stumbled across into ever since earlier ago. That we've stumbled across into our copyright stuff. So because of this though, thankfully it's nothing to do with the entire boss fight or anything else like that against with Supreme, because obviously I did somehow manage to talk over for the sake of the forms of the entire music itself. But to be more specifically, it's actually on the forms of the halfway point on this credit sequence, which as a result, yeah, I was not expecting that, especially because about the fact that, yeah, it kind of feels a bit a nuisance whenever that happens, but thankfully it does not affect it in my channel or anything, so I guess that's a good thing. So as a result, I think relatively speaking though, that was actually, well, it's been a very long time since we actually stumbled across into a copyright strike issue, ever since in a couple of videos based off from classic Mega Man games, specifically Mega Man 8 and Mega Man 9, and on top of that, Sonic and the Black Knight, which, speaking of Sonic and the Black Knight though, if you couldn't tell already, I no longer have that particular Let's Play of Sonic and the Black Knight, and the reason being for this is because I feel like maybe at some point in the future, I might able to actually do a redo Let's Play of that particular game for a couple of reasons. First of all, sound mixing is bad, and on top of all that stuff though, the actual screen size is okay, but I think what makes this a little bit more controversial, at least back then, despite the fact that I edited out one of those videos, specifically Part 7 most notably, for the sake of the forms of back in the day, is that for some reason we sweared a lot. So because of that though, yeah, I just feel like I'm about to able to tone down when it comes to the forms of some audiences alike. So because of that though, hopefully by that time until next year, presumably speaking, we can able to actually decide to do a redo Let's Play for, presumably for the third time, for the likes of Sonic and the Black Knight, which as a result, that might be the only Sonic redo Let's Play I'm about to do next. So, presumably speaking, that's what that is. So, Anyway though, a few things I want to explain for this point today, and that's what appears to be about the fact that today's date, of course, is the 25th of September today, in some cases in 2023 today. Well, straight to the point, we've only got about 3 more days to go, I think so anyway. It's that about the fact that we've only got about 3 more days to go now until the Final Horizons is almost getting closer to its release, for the sake of Sonic Frontiers. But then again, I will practice that on my own time for a bit, on the Switch version, just in case I can able to get used to how the main structure of the Final Horizons is going to play out to be. And, in addition to that though, just trying to get used to with the forms of playable characters we can able to actually finally interact with, mainly for the forms of cyber forms of Tails, Knuckles, and Amy, I think so anyway, and also some brand new challenges, which as a result, yep, we still have not done yet in terms of the forms of fully completed everything for Sonic Frontiers for the sake of time, as well as a new story to experience, meaning about the fact that there's going to be some more cutscenes, and I don't know how long does that particular DLC might take about, but if it goes by a little bit longer, I think something tells me once it gets a bit too longer, obviously we have to do the exactly the same system as the forms of, let's just say, in Super Mario Odyssey, basically. So, but even then, no, we shall see what happens in due time. So, anyway, though, so yeah, as you saw from the likes of the forms of, you know, Cyberspace 1-3, and especially noticeable with the forms of this current situation, where, as you saw, likely aside for the fact that when we on the 2D section, my goodness, the spin dash is awfully powered in the 2D section, which I will say, that was the coolest part when it comes to able to achieving or unlock the spin dash, just to ensure about the fact not only you get a burst of speed, but it's also about the fact that you can able to do all sorts of stuff here and there, similar as the forms of how it does in the good old days of the Mega Drive / Sega Genesis classic Sonic games, or generally speaking though, it's about the fact that you do realize about the fact that sometimes the momentum feels a bit weird at times, but it does take me a bit of a while to get used to with utilizing the spin dash at one point. And also you do realize there is actually not 1, not 2, but 4 star icons, or those weird symbols that usually shows up right next to the timer, and so far we've actually only come across into those red strange symbol stuff. I'm guessing that signifies as we perform a spin dash, so as a result, yeah, I've got no words to think about it. So, but even then though, I'm not exactly sure what these other symbols meaning for, but then again though, it has been about, let's just say it's been about 2 days ago since we've last played this game for sure, and relatively speaking though, it's about the fact that Silver is almost finishing up with Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania, so I can imagine about the fact that during this Friday, specifically on the 29th of September, he will definitely gonna be able to finish up that particular game before we move on to the next couple of Let's Plays to come. So, but even then though, yeah, that might be the actual prime example for that. So, anywho though, there's also another explanation I should probably explain about this as well, is that I did not realize about the fact that during the course of in the Super Mario RPG remake, that, you know, with the fact that with the recent Nintendo Direct that we've already got, ever since in about a couple of days ago, that basically though is about the fact that yes, they did manage able to do a visual change during the forms of in Monster Town, you know, with the forms of that particular mysterious door that leads us to the secret boss against with Kulix. Well, as it turns out about the fact that we now got ourselves a visual change, which as a result, it's now a black door rather than just a purple door. So, I guess that makes it pretty obvious because of how the fact that you still need to able to obtain the shiny stone after all in order to able to actually access to Kulix. So, yeah, that might be the actual prime example about the fact that, well, it's always important to able to actually keep that item at all times, assuming of course you need to able to keep on leveling up or, you know, anything else to be more specific. So, anyway though, in terms of another thing I should probably explain about this as well, is that, well, suffice to say, is that today marks the 4th anniversary of the game's release of Mario Kart Tour. So yeah, I can't even believe that Mario Kart Tour has been out for about 4 years ago now, because, you know, get it, because about the fact that we're still on the anniversary tour after all, so relatively speaking, you know, everything else may able to actually feel a bit somewhat of a surprising note. So, yeah, relatively speaking though, how does it hold up when it comes to Mario Kart Tour after 4 years? Well, Okay, I will admit though, the amount of content in the game is so super, especially concerning about the fact that we have a gem pack full of characters, likely also for the fact that we actually got some surprises here and there, like, you know, Monty Mall, Hammer Bro, as well as the forms of any other characters returning from the Mario Kart past. Well, apart from a couple of exceptions though, which there are Rob the Robot, and especially noticeable with Paratrooper and Honey Queen, because they were going to be data mined for the sake of the forms within Mario Kart Tour, but it seems to be more specifically that, as you know, the content, or specifically brand new content, has come to a complete stop. So yeah, as a result, yeah, there's not much else to say about that. And also, I do really like the amount of tracks they've got, which is probably the most biggest lineup in terms of the any Mario Kart game to date. Well, in terms of the forms of the console Mario Kart games, I will say that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is the most gigantic games when it comes to the forms of the track selection for the console Mario Kart games. So that's what I was going to be thinking about anyway. So, and also I do really enjoy with the forms of let's just say with those Nitro courses here and there, apart from a couple of exceptions. While looking back, especially noticeable because concerning about the fact that there's not much variety to begin with, although it does manage to get slightly improved in the later years to come, specifically when it's introduced into ourselves London Loop or anything else to be more specific. So, but even then though, that'll be a discussion for a later time. So either way though, I certainly doubt about the fact that, oh, and also the visuals are alright for the most part, despite they might be felt a bit too plasticky and clayish, anything else like that, because I will admit though right away though is that the game does manage to able to have a lot of issues in the past, but throughout the forms of 4 years to come, I do have able to actually have some new positives to say. Let's just say, as I said before, the visuals are alright for the mobile phone game, but I will admit though right away though is about the fact that I do really enjoy the actual visual identity for certain tracks in particular, mainly the forms of certain graphical improvements for the sake of the forms of certain tracks returning from, let's just say, from the likes of Mario Kart Wii, for example, and also on top of that with the forms of Mario Kart DS and all that stuff. But relatively speaking though, I think that was the only aspects that somehow managed to get positives. So, unfortunately though, for me though, is about the fact that when it comes to the forms of the actual gameplay, and perhaps even most notable thing about it while looking back, after we've already established that before, it's become noticeably worse. Although thankfully that the Gotchum system is now being entirely removed for good, so that's another positive thing to say about this. And on top of all that stuff though, it's about the fact that, well, yeah, that's the only positives I can think about. Although, I do like the soundtrack still. Mind you, there are certain music have been reused in the past Mario Kart games, likely also for the majority of Mario Kart Wii selections of tracks, including Mario Kart 7 selections of courses, and even especially noticeable with Mario Kart Double Dash as well, and on top of that with Mario Kart DS as well, and also say applies with Mario Kart 64 as well. But, oh, and also with Super Mario Kart as well, and even, Super Circuit as well. But aside from all that stuff, though, I honestly do really like certain Nitro-themed tracks, especially noticeable with the forms of, I think my favorite tracks in terms of the, Nitro, tracks they introduced. I think there were quite a few, actually. There was, let's just say, Singapore Speedway, Vancouver Velocity. That was definitely a great music track in that particular track in mind, and also I really like the forms of let's just say I don't know actually, it's kind of hard to think about the actual things itself on top of my head, because aside from all that stuff though, that's when my new positives ends. Because as far as negatives are concerned, they're a little bit more lesser this time around though, mainly because about the fact that, well, throughout the forms of 4 years later, I developed some new ones. First of all, I want to classify for something is about the fact that it still has not addressed about the forms of that. Well, let's just say, during the forms of the control system, my god, it still looks finicky even to this day. Like, I'm still really hoping they're able to support the Nintendo Switch controller for its Bluetooth system, in order able to actually make the controls a little bit more easier. at least I feel like anyway, especially concerning about the fact that for some reason I'm pretty much used to with the forms of the actual portrait mode more than the landscape, because the thing is with landscape, in my opinion though, just make things a little bit more, I don't know, convoluted to me. Especially concerning about the fact that I have to use my thumb to able to reach certain spots, specifically just utilize items and drifting a lot, and also just get into the back viewpoint. Maybe I definitely need to practice that, but regardless of such though, I still find the controls are a bit too finicky in the game. Although, another negative thing I can think about is that I just wish there was more variety when it comes to the forms of the challenge selection. Although, some of them are actually kind of fun while looking back, like for instance with Big Reverse Race versus 100, because as a result, that is the definition of the best one, because you're able to actually race against with up to 100 racers, but all you have to do is just basically have to make your way to first, and that's about it. So, and also, I really do hope about the fact that they're able to actually have, like, different selections of challenges, like, oh, I don't know, managed able to do all kinds of half pipes or something like that, but I don't think it's possible just because you'll be autopilot, or, well, to be more specifically, similar to the forms of Sonic and the Secret Rings, basically you'll be a perpetual motion device. So, yeah, obviously about the fact that you'll just driving all the way forward throughout the entire run, no reverse or anything else to be more specific. So, at least in some tracks anyway though, or some variants for that matter. So, and another negative thing I can think of is that trying to able to actually get not only certain characters, but also with the forms of certain Mii racing suits locked out behind the cupped rank system. I just did not like it at all still, especially because it's all depending on RNG sometimes with all that particular performance, I guess. I do get about the fact that you still need to try to able to level up your character or driver or carts or gliders, but every time I try, it just managed able to make me feel like, wow, not worth anything. And on top of all that stuff though, I'm still not a big fan of battle mode, but for two reasons, or technically speaking, 3 reasons that I do not like battle mode in Mario Kart Tour anymore. Well, at least I give Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U some credit for. At least you have better control, and on top of that, you do have 8 battle courses, despite they're heavily borrowed from the racetracks themselves, which that was the only downside I can think about it. Thus, it only has like a balloon battle, and that's pretty much about it. For Mario Kart Tour though, it just has lesser amounts of those battle courses kind of thing about it, which almost goes back into a homage to the forms of, let's just say, not only for the likes of in Super Mario Kart, but also with Mario Kart 64 selections of battle stages, and on top of that, that could be also applied for Super Circuit as well. Like, where's the fun in that? I mean, relatively speaking though, I really wish that they were able to contain a battle course based off of Mario Kart Wii, and on top of that with the forms of, is there one for Mario Kart 7? I don't think so, I don't think there's anything else related to Mario Kart 7 for the battle courses, nor Mario Kart 64 either. So it's just literally about the fact that we only had 3 retro battle stages and 2 brand new ones. So as a result, despite the fact that the 2 brand new ones, it obviously takes place in exactly the same environment as the racetracks themselves. Mind you, there's only 2 of them. Like, I still really wish that they added in more, but I guess it's too late for now, just because, well, the new content has ended, like I said before, so, like, I was expecting that maybe London Loop were able to get a battle-themed course, or Berlin Byways, or anything else like this, but, like I said before, it's already too late, so, who cares about that? And second being is about the fact that, obviously I mentioned this before, is that the controls are a bit too finicky in journey forms of in battle mode, and also not to mention though, I just really wish it has a different music variety. Like, all we got is just one particular track on the forms of the music track from the likes of in a battle mode selections of stages in Mario Kart Tour. And because of that though, the reason I want to address that, because the entire soundtrack on battle mode is incredibly limited. It's only for one song, which is of course the Mario Kart 8 variant of the, you know, Battle Course 1 theme on the likes of in the actual, like, based off from Super Mario Kart or something like that. And that's about it. So no returning tracks or musical tracks or anything else like that. That just gets, I don't know about you, kind of old very fast, especially noticeable, because every time whenever I do manage to play battle mode online, which by the way, that's also another gripe I have with it, is that, my god, I have some very stupid luck of able to actually try to win any other battle modes in particular for the likes of an online play, and because of that, I always get so many bad lucky moments, like, for instance, with bad controls, getting cornered most of the time. And even especially noticeable, I guess the best strategy I can think of is to wait until when it says team battles. As far as I'm concerned, that'll make the entire process a bit easier for my circumstances, especially if you really want to complete those specific challenges, like to get some more rubies and stuff like that. Well, good luck, because obviously about the fact that you're miles able to get owned a lot, so... But either way, that's what I can think about it. And third, and most annoyingly to me though, is the actual AI bots can really kick my butt. And relatively speaking though, that's the perfect example of why that I feel like about the fact that the battle mode in Mario Kart Tour, in my opinion, it just kind of feels like a downgraded version of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe variation, because I still say that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe variant for the battle mode is actually top-notch better, especially because, you know, not only does it have some very cool, unique battle-themed stages, but it's also about the fact it has a lot of content, like for instance with 5 different battle modes, which are Shine Thief, Balloon Battle, Coin Runners, as well as Bob-omb Blast, and Renegade Roundup, and that's actually pretty cool and top-notch at the same time, in my opinion, just because it has a lot more variety when it comes to likely having fun with your friends, like a lot. Even especially noticeable, it gets a lot more funner in online experience overall. Well, despite I get butt kicked in the end, but regardless of such though, I did have a great time. So, but even then though, when it comes to Mario Kart Tour though, it only features one battle mode, and that's what appears to be the Balloon Battle, and that's about it basically, so... Yeah, I've got no words to think about it, so... Yeah, that's as far as I can think about it. I will admit though, I find Mario Kart Tour at the end of the day, well, after 4 years since when it first came out, I now decided to able to classify it as an okay game. Not the best, but kind of okay. Not the best, as I said, because, well, I've already pointed out certain negative things about it though, but still. Anyway though, so yeah, let's talk about the forms of that particular point of how come that we actually stumbled across into a copyright thing during the course of in the end credit sequence. Well, that come out of nowhere whenever I did manage to upload that video during that specific day. And on top of all that stuff though, it usually locates on, you know, as I said before, in a halfway point in this credit sequence right after the first post-credit scene. And basically, for some reason, I have to able to edit out the video out. And unfortunately though, we've lost our commentary for a bit. So, yeah, I apologize for this point, guys. I blame on the forms of the stupid copyright strikes and stuff like that. So, but what I was meant to say is that I can't believe by saying this, is that Amy Rose did somehow mention Styx the Badger in the actual first post-credits scene in Sonic Frontiers, which that was actually very unexpected, especially ever since during the forms of in the Sonic Boom community. Mind you about the fact that it's been about 6 years ago since we've last heard about the forms of Styx the Badger, since the final episode of Season 2 of Sonic Boom, which, gee, no wonder why it's kind of unfortunate that the 3rd season has been cancelled, because, well, I could assure you about the fact that most people don't really care about the Boom community anymore, especially concerning about that specific point that it feels a bit more controversial for the sake of any other, like, Sonic fans alike, so... But anyway though, there's also another thing I should probably address something about this as well, is that we have not seen by the forms of anything else on Styx the Badger, since in addition with the forms of in the finale episode of Season 2 in Sonic Boom, but also with the forms of the entire video game tie-ins, like for instance the last time we saw her in terms of video games departments, which are both Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games on the 3DS and Wii U. That surely plays archery. And on top of that, with Sonic Boom, Fire and Ice for the 3DS. So yeah, it has been about roughly or so 7 years since we've last seen Styx the Badger, or relatively speaking, technically 6 years for the sake of the forms of Sonic Boom Season 2, just because about the fact that that particular season came out in during the forms of in 2017 with that particular finale alike, so either way. Oh yeah, there's also another explanation I wanted to classify for something else for this matter, is that unfortunately though, we're about to go back onto the worst cyberspace segment in the entire run-through, which is of course level 3-5, where we have to utilize this very awkward drifting. So yeah, as a result about the fact, I still find this to be, kind of a lackluster experience. Although, there's the advice for this though, if you really want to get this particular S rank, I highly recommend you see that particular green dash panels you saw for about a few moments ago. Jump over them, because otherwise if you dare touch them, it'll instantly go into drifting mode. So because of that though, I highly recommend you're able to avoid those at all costs. So just in case you don't are able to fall off so many times. And relatively speaking though, it's about the fact that this actually took me a lot of tries in order to able to actually get to this point. That also includes on the Switch version on my own time. So now I figure out how on earth do we able to actually complete this stage no problem. So yeah, relatively speaking though, you just have to be able to jump over for those green dash panels, because that way, it actually helps out. And especially noticeable if you do have the spin dash ability with you, then you should make this level 10 times as more manageable. So, when it comes to completion and all that stuff, so yeah, you probably get the idea, so anyway though, oh yeah, in terms of the forms of something else I could possibly explain about this as well, is that since that we've already now managed able to watch the rest of the forms of Chapter 5 of My Little Pony Make Your Mark, so something tells me about the fact that we're now on to the final chapter, until specifically at some point during the forms of November this year. So if that seems to be the case, well, it's kind of unfortunate that Make Your Mark is about to be ending soon. So, kind of think about it, it seems kind of weird between both Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass and My Little Pony Make Your Mark series on Netflix. Basically though, they both managed able to come out in between each other. Like, I would say, for example, Wave 1 did manage able to start things off in during the forms event sometime in March last year for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And, well, when it comes to the forms of the Booster Course Pass, after all, despite the first impressions are a bit mixed bag, especially noticeable with the visual style is drastically different, mainly with the forms of most people complain about Toad Circuit is being the most weakest track selection for the likes of the Booster Course Pass, not only because of its visuals, but it's also very simplistic, and on top of that, generic theme. So because of that though, yeah, I can totally see why a lot of people are not a big fan of Toad Circuit being returning onto Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which, yeah, that comes up as pretty unexpected back then, so, but either way, and after that, I would say on the first chapter in Make Your Mark, did came out during, I would say sometime in May. So yeah, that was like a 2-month gap in between Wave 1 and Chapter 1 respectively. And on top of that, I'm pretty certain that Wave 2 came out in Journey Forms in August last year. And I believe in Chapter 2 did manage to came out during September or something like that, which is like a 1-month gap in between the forms of Wave 2 and Chapter 2. And as far as Wave 3 is concerned, I believe that came out during December, which is roughly, I think it's roughly the exactly same month as Chapter 3 for the likes of My Little Pony Make Your Mark series, which, kind of think about it, it seems pretty weird able to actually have those two things combined with all that particular month gaps or something like that. So, and as far as Wave 4 and Chapter 4 is concerned, well, I'm pretty certain about the fact that Wave 4 did came out during the forms of in March, during the forms of this year in particular, and Chapter 4 doesn't seem able to be released until sometime in June. So as a result, that was like a, I would say a 3-month gap in between Wave 4 and Chapter 4. So, yeah, I guess that's that. And recently we still got Wave 5 in Journey Evolves in July this year. And then in Journey Evolves of the Chapter 5 of My Little Pony Make Your Mark. Basically, that came out just recently during September. So that was like a 2-month gap. So, and who knows, maybe it'll be Wave 6 and Chapter 6 next. For, you know, with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Booster Course Pass, and My Little Pony Make Your Mark series combined. Seriously, it's so weird about the fact that when it comes to the releases, it just feels... I know it's a bit tricky to explain, because I know for a fact that despite I'm not exactly a huge fan of G5 to begin with, but relatively speaking though, because I do have my honest opinion for the sake of the forms of likely or so of how do I prefer for biased, I guess, so... But there we go, we've done the Cyberspace Challenge based off from Chaos Island, and as far as at this point in time, that we might able to actually almost finish up everything for the Cyberspace Challenges and what have you, because again, the Spin Dash is overly too powerful for the sake of the forms of certain cyberspace segments from time to time. Although, if you dare manage able to get to the midway portion of certain stages or something like that, do not able to actually press restart unless if you keep on messing things up for the sake of the speedrun tactics. So because of that though, yeah, if you dare manage able to press restart in not only just by the forms of the midway portion of certain island subspace challenges or cyberspace challenges, that you have to start all over from square one, and relatively speaking, you have to sit through a lot of load screens as well. Although thankfully that does not seem the case on the beginning portion if you keep on restarting the first ever cyberspace challenge, as you can tell, because it loads very quickly. But as far as everything else goes, you have to sit for those loading screens if you're about to try to do a better run. So, anyway... Oh yeah, speaking of something related to My Little Pony actually, I've recently managed able to get myself a new update for My Little Pony app game on the iPhone, and as a result, it did manage to feature some new stuff here and there. Like for instance, they now introduced into ourselves the animal pet companions. So, mainly for something related to likely give you a massive boost for certain status or best ways to able to level up your ponies, or just any other currencies for that matter. But also, out of nowhere, we're about to get ourselves some even more items for the star system, based on the forms of some rankings. Like, for instance, you might get, like, a rare frame, as well as some new shops. Like, for instance, there is this awesome Emuti Ball poster, and on top of that, the rare avatar featuring the forms of Twilight Sparkle is doing some very strange magic or something. And on top of that, some even more gems to get, specifically 60 of them. And on top of that, there's also Harmonious Unity Archives, and also we've got Star Stand, which actually gives us some more gems at the very least. And finally, Minty, for some reason, based off from the likes of G3 character. So, well, despite the fact that I'm not a big fan of G3 either, just because of how the fact that not only because it's stilted animation, but it's also about the fact that, well, it does feel very bizarre when it comes to seeing G3 in action. So, but either way though, that's just my kind of theory anyway, so, but even then though, that's saying something I guess, so... Oh yeah, there's also another thing I should probably explain about this as well, is that a lot of people do really enjoy the Sonic Superstars prologue recently, which, myself included, I obviously enjoyed that as well, especially because, gee, I wonder what Eggman, Fang, and Trip are up to something, so... But then again, we'll have to wait and find out until Sonic Superstars actually decides to come out, so sometimes though, we always have to wait. Oh! Speaking of which though, I believe we've only got about roughly 22 days to go until Sonic Superstars is about to be releasing, so... And I believe in terms of Super Mario Bros. Wonder, I think we've only got about, presumably speaking, 25 days to go for... No, wait, that's not right. Is it like... Oh, I don't know, I've got lost track of myself and my calendar skills. I should have fetched, not only Starlight Glimmer, but also Twilight Sparkle able to help me out. I'm sure they know what they're doing, especially noticeable because after all, Starlight Glimmer was actually expert when it comes to being principal and stuff like that, you know, ever since in during the forms of, you know, the friendship school and stuff like that, or something relates to that, but either way, or just, I don't know, it's hard to explain really. Especially concerning about the fact that after all, that, yeah, I can't believe we're getting very close towards the end of Sonic Frontiers, folks. Especially because, you know, getting very close after all. But, oh yeah, I should also classify for something about this as well, is about the fact that, relatively speaking though, is about the fact that thank you guys so much for able to actually support our channel recently, especially because we're now on to 740 subscribers. I mean, how insane is that? Especially because concerning about the fact that my guess is about the fact that, well, it could be something more related to the forms of a lot of enjoyment of certain Let's Plays in the past. Specifically, Mario Super Sluggers, that's the obvious answer. And on top of that, with the forms of some Mario Party Let's Plays and all that stuff. Even though there's only one Mario Party game exception to that, and that was of course Mario Party Advance, because a lot of people don't care about that game, which I'll honestly agree to that, because I have no idea why that game exists, and especially noticeable, it doesn't help there is no multiplayer experience when it comes to the party board gameplay. At least I'll give the top 100 some credit for, despite there's only one board, which is pretty lackluster, so either way. And also, speaking of which though, is about the fact I've heard from a lot of people out there, well, specifically for those of you who lived in North America up to this point, that they seem to be able to complain about this out of place red Nintendo spine logo on the 3DS game cases. I get they're trying to replicate the forms of that exactly the same Nintendo logo that usually just somehow replicates the ones in the forms of the you know, Nintendo Switch spines, but it just feels kind of out of place on the North American 3DS game cases. Well, at least in terms of spines anyway, because as far as I'm usually concerned, I've heard from a lot of people they're trying to do a DNY for the likes of the forms of trying to able to sort this problem out, and that is to try to utilize the plain paper or a tiny bit of the plain paper to make things a little bit more stand out when it comes to likely putting certain 3DS games up to your shelf or something like that. I mean, luckily in the UK version, that does not seem to be the case, because after all, about the fact that, you know, we've only just got the actual red Nintendo logo in the actual front cover portion of certain 3DS games. Like, I think it did start it during the forms of in the 2017 run-through for the likes of Hey Pikmin or any other 3DS games for that matter, like Miitopia or anything else like that, but I totally get it, it's kind of out of place, but even then no, I'm guessing it's because the reason why it's kind of out of place is because I still can't believe, while looking back on it though, that seems it's kind of strange they're able to actually continue the 3DS support while the Switch, well, you know, Nintendo Switch has already been out during that time. I mean, seriously, it's kind of weird, you know? I'm not exactly sure it might do that for the sake of the forms if the actual Nintendo Switch 2 is about to become reality, and then while the Nintendo Switch, the first one, will continue its support. Well, I suppose we'll find out later down the road, mainly for the likes of 2024 and beyond, but we shall see. And also, I haven't exactly heard anything for the sake of the forms of the Knuckles TV series, as far as I'm aware, from Paramount Plus, because relatively speaking, they still pretty much gonna have to work on certain filming scenes for the likes of the upcoming Sonic the Hedgehog 3. So even then, we still have no idea what the release date is going to be for Knuckles the series up to this point, but we still have to consider about the fact that with the Righteous Strike has been going on at this point, so... Oh, you... Okay. That's fine, because we got a checkpoint anyway, so... And thus, as you probably already know, that the Spin Dash is incredibly powerful for the sake of the forms of this game, so that makes the entire process of able to actually getting every single S ranks a little bit more easy to manage for some of these cyberspace segments, but at least on the upside, in Journey Forms of 1-2, there's actually a little bit more, let's say a little bit easier to get for getting the S rank compared to the Forms of how it does it when you first got there, especially because, relatively speaking, now it is still definitely is a little bit impossible to able to do it on the first attempt for getting the S rank in Cyberspace 1-2, but still. Anyway, so I think in terms of other stuff I would like to mention about, honestly, there's not much else I can say, especially concerning about the fact that, well, that's all we can think about this, so. But at least on the upside is about the fact that we've almost done with the forms of, you know what I'm saying, with the Alranos' Island and all that stuff when it comes to Cyberspace Challenge mode, but as we said before, we're not exactly going to be completely done with this completely, because obviously there are still more things to come. So, now, as far as I'm usually concerned about the fact that there's also, I would say, another mode just being unlocked, and that's what appears to be about the fact that there is technically a New Game Plus, which basically what this means is that if you manage able to select New Game Plus during the course of the entire run-through of Sonic Frontiers, you can able to actually replay the game again, except all of your skills and your abilities have been carried over during the forms of our New Game Plus scenario. So even then though, yeah, something very similar to the forms of how it does it on most Kingdom Hearts games, specifically Kingdom Hearts 0.2, Birth by Sleep, a Fragmentary Passage, as well as Kingdom Hearts 3. So, yeah, that's the only things I can think about it. So, even then, it's actually very similar for that regard, except, well, we're playing a Sonic game after all, so. Yeah, that's what I've got for this point, so. And also, I would like to apologize for that particular bad commentary, or to be more specifically, the commentary feels a little bit awkward, and once again, the actual laptop decides to lag again, so yeah, I still need to fix that at some point. It's always decides to get a little bit aggravating during the forms of the later days to come, so I will imagine about the fact that if we somehow manage to get a brand new laptop at some point until next year, we can pretty much guarantee we don't have that much issues with the actual stupid lag that is involved, but still. Also, kind of thinking about it though, is about the fact that I just really love the actual character perspective on the forms of Misty for the sake of the forms of, you know, Chapter 5 as far as her progression goes, but that's the only thing I do like about the forms of Chapter 5 and possibly for onwards, although still a few couple of times though about the fact that she obviously gets distracted by a lot of negativity, especially thanks to the forms of Alpaline or anything else like that, so yeah, that does seem a little bit odd, at least as far as I'm concerned with that stuff, but either way, yeah, that's what I can really say about the forms of today's discussion at this point, especially concerning about the fact that, well, I was expecting to try to able to mention about something related to the Nintendo Switch Online services, but I think I should probably wait for that until when something new is about to pop up, for the sake of the forms of how the forms of new games have been added, for the likes of the forms of the Nintendo Switch Online subscription services, or expansion pack, but either way, they'll have to wait and see what happens in due time, so yeah, that's what I really say about that. Especially because, like I said before, that sometimes the loading screens during the forms of Alranos' Island portion of Cyberspace segments can take a bit of a while to load, especially mainly because some of them are actually kind of lengthy, and some of them are actually super duper quick, like for instance with like Cyberspace level 4-8 or something like that. Well, mind you about the fact that, like I said before, it's been, not only has it been for a very long time since we've last experienced these Cyberspace levels, since, kind of thinking about it, the last time we actually experienced a Cyberspace level was back in 2 months ago, because obviously we've been busy decided able to go ahead and do, you know what I'm saying, with the forms of a lot of grinding, for not just by the forms of some level ups, for, you know, speed, as well as the boost gauge, thanks to the forms of some new Cocos that we somehow attain, and on top of that with the forms of, you know, Cyberspace challenges, or just, action chain challenges, as far as what I was meant to say, and in addition with the forms of, other stuff like taking down some Guardians down just for the sake of completionist's sake, although you can still able to see the actual crown I'm still wearing, specifically Frontier Elite, so even though that signifies the actual point that we're still pretty much going to be wearing a crown basically, so Anyway, though, so yeah, that's just not much else I can say about that, I guess. So, and this is where things gets a little bit slightly tricky, especially noticeable. Again, you need to be super duper fast about this. Although, thankfully, though, about the fact that as soon as you're able to keep on getting faster times and what have you for certain cyberspace segments from time to time, obviously about the fact that you don't have to necessarily try to worry about keep on falling a lot. Well, don't fall all the time, though, because otherwise your time will get messed up. So, either way, that pretty much takes care of the hardest cyberspace segments throughout the entire game. So, I think, relatively speaking, though, we now moved on to the final cyberspace segment, at least assuming about the fact that I'm not exactly sure if the cyberspace segments will be included for the likes of the Final Horizons DLC, but again, we'll have to wait and find out and during at some point in a later time. So, and besides, we've only got about 3 more days to go until that particular DLC arrives, so. And here we go on to the best one out of them all, though, when it comes to the cyberspace segment, and that's of course doing some skateboarding, and on top of all that stuff, though, is about the fact that with some occasional platforming here and there. So, yeah, that's what I can really say about that. But then again, I would have liked to explain something else, but it's just about, no matter what, though, it's just about the fact that I'm actually having some very stupid luck upon the forms of Mario Kart Tour again, especially concerning about the fact I was really looking forward to getting Gold Mario, but unfortunately, though, my luck is pretty much out of luck. So, when it comes to able to obtaining those specific characters on the ranked cups, so, yeah, still I do not like that system. So, either way. Although technically speaking, though, there was actually another thing I want to address something, is that out of nowhere, one of those games in particular, called The Lovely Impress, has been announced for the Nintendo Switch, and also one of those games in particular, called Trigger Heart Exelia, is expected to be coming on the Switch during this December. So yeah, I think that's the only thing I can probably think about. There are a couple of ones here and there as well, which I could possibly think about on top of my head, but either way, I think we should probably end things off at this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Sonic Frontiers. It's about the fact that we might able to actually do all stages during the forms of Cyberspace Challenge for, presumably, for the final time, and because of that, there's a nice reward if you manage to get the S ranks. So I'll see you guys until tomorrow. Later, fellas.